welcome to Oracle Multi-Tenant Office Hours.
I have a question or a scenario that I'd like to run past you.
Okay, let's do that. Dave, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I am using, we don't have this rolled out yet, but I'm going to be using data card along with CDBs, multiple PDBs. Going to be having the PDBs created in somewhat of a self-service model. What I have done is I set up using, and we have I'll say like a standard seed for the PDB, our own standard seed.
Okay.
And we have a few different character sets that are used, so there's a couple multiple sets of seeds. So what I've done is I've backed up that standard seed or the set of standard seeds into a NAS share. I'm using the standby PDB source file directory parameter on the standby side to create the PDB, the standby PDB when I create the primary PDB. So I create the primary PDB, and the standby CDB is instantiated by following that parameter to the NAS share where I have the data files.
Right. Okay, I think it's called standby CDB.
Standby PDB source file directory.
DB link or directory.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a DB link also if you were going to follow that to pull it off of a running, if your seed was in a running CDB and you wanted to pull it off there. So I'm doing that, and that is the way, either that way or using the link were the only ways I could see to have my own seed and to automatically populate the standby PDB. The scenario I'm running into now is I'm just testing functionality, normal data guard functionality. And when I altered a table space to add a data file to a PDB, I was getting an error that it wasn't being created in the standby. It took me a while, but I realized it's because I have that standby PDB source file directory parameter set. If I unset that and I alter the table space and add a data file, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm assuming it's going to do the same thing to me if I create a table space. When I unset that parameter, my data file creates just fine in my standby PDB with no issue. So now I'm in a scenario where I have to toggle the scenario. If I'm using this method to create my standby PDB, I have to toggle the parameter off and on. I have to toggle it on when I'm creating when I'm allowing people to create the PDBs, and I have to toggle it off when they're done. The situation that sets me up for is that I have to be able to single thread PDB creation in a CDB so they don't stomp on each other with turning the parameter on and turning it off. And I don't know how I can do this, but if a PDB is being created and somebody in another PDB in that same CDB creates a table space or adds a data file, it will not be populated in the standby.
Yeah, so, one or other of those things is not going to work. Yes, I can see. Yeah. I can see that. So without the parameter set, what I'm imagining is that the add data file statement is transported and replaced properly on the standby.
Correct. Without it set, it translates properly and everything's fine. If it is set, you get the message that I couldn't create this data file, and it leaves I could look at the exact statement, but it basically leaves a file not found marker in the control file.
Yeah.
which I then could take and I can fix it, but I don't want to have to fix it. And I want this stuff to be all automated, which is our direction. So I guess a couple of things with my scenario of having our own standard Cs, of which I may end up with multiple of those depending on who's asking for a PDB to be created, and the need to instantiate the PDB as a standby. Is this my best approach? And then I just have to handle the other situations, or is there actually, I've looked at different ways to do this, and this is actually the one I saw that would actually work. I'm not really finding something else. Am I missing something on a way to instantiate the standard?
No. I'll be perfectly honest with you, David. What you're saying, I follow completely. I've never tested this scenario that you're describing.
Yeah.
But I find it completely plausible, the explanation that you've given, and and given the fact that you've tested doing the toggle, makes it, everything you described completely credible. It doesn't sound like you're doing anything wrong, and to me, this feels like a bug that we should support exactly the sort of functionality that you're describing, because it's totally reasonable for you not to want to, for you to expect this thing to work totally automatically in a self-service manner, for you not to have to single thread things, because you can imagine some kludgy way where you might try and script around this and toggle the parameter on and off, but then you get into the single threading issue.
And then you run into the issue where someone may be creating a table space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then that's not cool either. So I mean, but maybe you could do some harm reduction, but by doing that sort of thing. So this is one of the things I'm going to have to investigate offline a little bit. A couple more questions for you before I do that. First is, would you mind in your private message, send me a private message with your email address so that I can follow up with you via email on this, if you don't mind. In the chat window, when you type in a message, you can say whether it's to everybody or just to me. So just send it to me. And then I'll talk to the developer for this feature. Actually, there are a few of these guys, and see if we can think of another way around it today. It might be that what we'll end up doing is to say, in fact, this is an enhancement that'll take some time for us to deliver. In the meantime, we'll have a stepwise approach. And the stepwise approach might be to have to somehow script, wrap this procedure around some script, which puts you through that single-threaded approach, which reduces the harm, but doesn't completely eliminate it. But at least, it's better than it was. Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a way. I mean, you guys can. I will take any suggestion you have. I think with the way I'm automating the PDB create, I may have a way to single thread that. I guess it wouldn't be in the database, so someone could go in by hand and do it. But yeah, whatever you have, I will. I'd love to hear it. So
okay.
I would assume that on the standby side, there's just redo that's initiating something that's adding a data file, and that parameter's just taking anything that's adding a data file and looking in the directory for the data file.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assumption.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It sounds like what you're trying to do seems very reasonable to me, and I'm sorry you're having trouble. Which version are you using?
18.5.
Okay. Yeah.
With like the 1901 PSU, whatever that one is. I can
18.5 with 1901, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're pretty up to date. Nowadays we call those RUs, but yeah.
Yeah.
1901 RU, PSU. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Very reasonable. So I need to follow up with you on that one, Dave.
Okay.
Very
Great.
very good questions.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just talk about the seeds that you use there? So custom seeds.
Yeah.
And you said you have one for each for various character sets.
Yeah.
Are you using AL32 UTF-8 centrally?
Yes.
In CDB?
So the CDB is AL32 UTF-8, and I'm plugging in. I'm using that for all the CDBs, and then I'm plugging in, if it's a Western European, I'm plugging it into the AL32 UTF-8 CDB, and I have some CDBs where I have PDBs of different character sets.
Right. Okay. But why are you creating a seed with AL32 UTF-8, but with other character sets rather?
It's the situation I have. There are various databases here that are of different character sets, and it is not within my power to change those. It's kind of the world.
Some things you can control, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things we can't control. We're trying to move. We've done a fairly good job over the past couple of years of getting to the Unicode character set, but we're not all the way there, and we may not be.
Yeah, so and I think that was exactly why we created this capability. So I hear you. The trend is good. You haven't gotten there yet completely.
Right. One other thing I want to mention also, and then I'll give the mic to someone else, is that when I am populating the standby PDB, so I'm doing my statement to create the PDB on the primary, and it is getting instantiated on the standby. The data file for the system table space is not being put in. I'm using ASM. It's not going underneath the ASM directory of the GUID of the PDB. The GUID of the CDB root, a directory with that GUID is being created, and all the system data files are being put there for every PDB that I'm creating on the standby side.
Wow, I'm impressed by your forensics.
But when I extend the data file in the primary, it extends correctly. If I add a data file to system table space, it goes underneath the PDB's GUID.
Yes, but on the standby side, it ends up in the root GUID.
Right. The initial create of the PDB on the standby side, the system, the data file for the system table space is being created. CDB root GUID.
Okay.
Which I don't think that GUID directory exists before I run my statement to create the PDB.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, so you've got, I've got some interesting follow-up to do after this call. Okay, thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, some good questions there. So you guys, the pressure's on the rest of you now. You've got to follow up with that sort of level. And in chat, I have some good questions. Meanwhile, I'm going to say hello to some people here, by the way. I see Dallas, I see Daryl, and Sven. So welcome to the call here. You had Dave. Dave spoke up through Mike. The next questions I'll take came from Martin, who've come in through chat. So anybody who wants to ask a question through either of those means is good. For now, everyone's muted. And I'll look at Martin's questions here. There were two. The first one, how is the audit trail between the CDB and the PDB separated? Is the audit data taken along with the PDB moved to a new CDB? Yes, it is. In the right version, that's true because the audit tables are at the PDB level. Next question, $instance, $database within the PDB. So $instance and $database within a PDB show instance name and database name from the CDB. Is there a way to mask that data so the application does not get to see the CDB information? Or show the PDB name instead of the CDB name? No, I don't think so. What we do in those tables is to hide the names of other PDBs, but the PDB that you're in and the CDB that you're in, you see those names. So now the next question. Are there some demos of PDB snapshot cloning using DNFS? I don't know if I've got any demos online about that, specifically with DNFS. So what we're talking about here is database managed snapshots. So I imagine what you're doing here is you're enabling the database level parameter clone DB equals true, and you're doing a snapshot that way with DNFS. I don't think we have any demos online for that. It should be very simple to do, though. Have you tried this, Martin? Not yet. Well, give it a go, and let me know. It's depending on what version you're using, anything before 19, the restriction for creating snapshot clones enabled with clone DB equals true, we call those database managed snapshots, as distinct from storage managed snapshots. The restriction is that the source database, source PDB, needs to be in read-only mode and unchanging for the duration of, for the lifetime of any children, any clones. So I think you have to put the PDB into read-only mode before you can clone it. But you can create snapshot clones. And for the most common use case, that works just fine, because the most common use case is that you're using this as a development master. A golden master or whatever you call it in development, and by definition you want that to be read-only. So that's that cycle. But give it a shot. It's very easy. You set the parameter clone DB equals true. I think you have to bounce the CDB, and then you should be able to create these very simply. Okay, some good questions there. Thank you. Okay, so since Dave and Martin started us everywhere, oh, here we got another good question here. Here's a question from Sven. Hello, Sven. What would be the best way to clone or copy a PDB from one SE2 single-tenant system in development to another single-tenant system on the same server? So first of all, you can do that. Let's just talk about SE2. In SE2, Standard Edition 2, we support the CDB architecture, the multi-tenant architecture, but only in single-tenant mode. So you can have a CDB with a single PDB in it. And the requirement in SE2 is that you adhere to the requirements of single tenancy. So to create a clone of a PDB in SE2 in another CDB in SE2 is possible, but the CDB into which you're going to create the clone would have to start off being an empty one. So you create the you create the CDB and make it an empty one. Maybe you're going to use DBCA or some other means. When you use DBCA, you'll typically get a starter PDB. Maybe the simplest thing is just to let that happen and then drop it. So now you've got an empty CDB. And then what you need is a database link from the target to the source. So think of this as a pull operation. You're going to go to the target, and you're going to pull your clone from the source. So you're going to go to the target, which is this newly created or at least empty SE2 CDB. You're going to create a database link which points back to the source from which you want to clone. And then in the target, you're going to say create pluggable database, my clone from my PDB at that database link. And that's the simplest way to create a clone. Okay, and your follow-up question is, so I unplug the PDB from the second CDB and then clone via the DB link from the target to the source. Yes, so unplug, yeah, unplug, just drop it. So you create your new CDB, you know, it'll come in with a default PDB with a name like PDB1 or something, so just drop that. You know, so you go there and you'd say, you know, first of all, you need to close it. If it's open, also PDB, you know, my PDB close, immediate, you might as well close immediate. Then drop pluggable database PDB1, just get rid of it, including data files. Oh, okay, yeah, fine. In that case, unplug it, yes. So you want to keep, well, okay, so now we've got two different PDBs, right? So you've got CDB1 with a PDB in it. How am I going to do this? So you've got CDB1 with a PDB in it. You've got CDB2, which you create, and it comes with a PDB, you know, so, you know, the default PDB. You want to drop that one, so now it's empty. Now what you want to do is you want to clone this one into here. So you're going to create a database link from here, pointing to that one, and you're going to connect here, and you're going to say, create pluggable database, my PDB, from this one at database link. And then that clone's going to happen, and you'll end up with a clone. The source doesn't go away. So this is a clone, not a relocation. So the result is that you will end up with two PDBs. And that's the, yeah, so that's the cloning approach. So there are some advantages. There are some pros and cons here. The alternative is that you do a relocation, and in this one you'd say create pluggable database, my PDB from my PDB at database link, relocate, and it ends up effectively moving it from one to the other. So you could decide what you want to do. If you wanted a fallback, I suppose what you could do is to, yeah, in single-tenant it gets a bit confusing. You probably want to clone it, unplug it, put it on the shelf somewhere. So let's, you know, that'll be the shelf. So put it on the shelf. Now I've got my live PDB. I'll relocate it. If anything goes disastrously wrong, I suppose you can always plug that guy back in, something like that. Now Martin has chimed in with a very good suggestion here. This is worthy of debate. Martin's suggestion is that Sven's case would be the perfect use case for snapshot cloning, and it may or may not be, depending on use case. But thank you for prompting some interesting conversations here, Martin. First of all, it is possible to do snapshot cloning between CDBs if you've got shared storage between them. Because technically the way this works is going to require, yeah, it's going to require access to the same, you know, the primary data files as well. So what Sven says is to use this, the use case is to create a copy in the test database from the development database. Yeah. I mean, this is where single-tenant gets in your way. You know, I'm the multi-tenant product manager. I want you to buy multi-tenant, and I want you to use it for its benefits. But you know, it really is great for this sort of thing. I know why people don't want to use necessarily, you know, don't want to license multi-tenants everywhere. It's expensive, but you know, it really does save you. In the end, it's not just operationally, technically it saves you a lot. So this classic use case is development and testing. And if you've got a development team with people who independently want to work on clones of the same database, that's the classic dev and test case, you got a golden master, you take lots of clones off it. Snapshot cloning is perfect for that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, those are interesting numbers, but there are some counter stories here. The point is that I think you might be able to do something like this with single tenant. It would be complicated, and you wouldn't get all the technical efficiencies, but you might be able to get some of the benefits of snapshot cloning. So I think what you'd have to do then is everybody has their own CDB, and it's empty, and you have shared storage, and you designate one of those CDBs as the master CDB, and that has the golden master in it. So you put the golden master in there and use that as your clone source. And with shared storage, you should be able to do snapshot clones to other CDBs. And then you'd stay in single tenant land. Now, what you will end up doing that way is, you know, you have to stand up multiple copies of the Oracle software, of the Oracle database engine. It's basically multiple instances of Oracle. And that has a significant footprint, 3 or 4 gigs probably, or almost at a minimum, you know, maybe 2 or 3 at a minimum. So you know, you're likely to run out of memory. But you know, there is an extent to which you can push this and still take advantage of snapshot cloning, and see how that works for you. But then the problem is, you know, you end up sometimes running out of memory before you've run out of CPU. Run out of memory, then you've got to get another blade, and now you're licensing a whole load of extra cores, whereas it's not always that way. Next question, Martin, do you always need a golden master? Yeah, you duplicate storage need. Well, yeah, you know, a golden master, you're going to end up with duplicate storage, one time for primary, one for the golden master, and there's several clones afterwards small. Absolutely true. It really depends on use case. And, you know, a big production shop, you often have people who get terrified about having production data in development hands for all sorts of reasons of compliance, security. You know, if there's PII data in there, personally identifiable information data in there, there are important implications, there are important compliance. For example, GDPR in Europe, or anyone that does business with Europe is subject to GDPR. And there are related things in California and elsewhere in the world. So you've got to be very careful about where you can copy this production data unmasked. And then other people just have concerns about having development share data files in general with production systems. So for those people, it makes sense to duplicate the storage, instantiate a golden master, and then mask it. That's where I'm going. So quite often you end up with a flow which starts with a production system, then you end up with a clone in development in a sort of quarantined area, then you mask that, the mask becomes the golden master, which is then sanitized, so that doesn't need to be in quarantine anymore. That's the source for all the cloning. So, you know, in the big shops, which really do have these compliance requirements, you end up saying, you know, 3x storage there is a price well worth paying, so that we can get all the functionality we want and still remain in compliance. But if you don't have those issues, then you can take your clones straight out of production, then you save yourself on storage. So, you know, that there are trade-offs there. Okay. I'm just reading through the chat here. I see Sven. So this sounds interesting. I have to read up on snapshot cloning. Yes, we've got some good white papers about snapshot cloning. There's something on there's something on our OTN page. I'll see if I can find this and post it here. What Sven is saying is that, oh, thank you, you did it for me. That's exactly the one I meant. Yeah. So John McHugh and my team wrote that one. It's a good deck. It's a little bit, you know, I think John wrote that 3 or 4 years ago, but it's still applicable. That talks about snapshot cloning. That's the one. So Sven's talking here about the customer needs to run this on a small loader. Okay, good machine. So there's plenty of, yes, exactly, plenty of memory there. Okay. So what we've been talking here, 2 more people have joined us, TP and Yazid. Welcome to multi-tenant office hours. Does anyone have another question, either through microphone or through chat? If you want to speak through microphone, it's easier for me, frankly, just to unmute yourself in the bottom left of your screen and ask away.
Okay, this is Dave again. I'll ask you a question. If we are, one of the things about pluggables is if you unplug, say from an 18.3 and plug in to an 18.5 CDB, that plug-in, the PDB would be upgraded or patched automatically. Is that a correct statement?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We don't have that functionality yet.
Okay. Okay. That's what I was going to ask, because I didn't know, because I'm creating pluggables as a clone copy or pluggables as a clone, and I'm finding I have to execute data patch against.
That's true. You do.
Okay.
Now, we actually have a mechanism for this to happen automatically. I'm not sure that it's available in 18 yet. We have this, we're using this in Autonomous database, our Autonomous database. You know, it's automatic patch on PDB open. So basically, you relocate a PDB, you plug it in. When you open it, there's a version mismatch. We just run the patch automatically. We're not literally running data patch, but effectively the PDB is patched. And this mechanism is not yet available on-prem. So we'll see, you know, if it's going to be possible for us to release that with some future version.
So I would assume then, if it is patched on open, okay, then the patching activity would be transferred via the redo to the standby, so that the standby, which can't be open, you know, read write, would actually get the
right.
The,
so
get the patch.
Some of the details. These are some of the details that need to be worked out before we can make this public.
Okay.
But good questions. So for now, what you need to do is do it through data patch.
Is it possible at all to run data patch against a specific PDB?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there
Well, so the simple example for that would be, let's say you've got a PDB, you've got a CDB and you've got 10 PDBs in it.
right?
If 5 of them are closed, and then you run data patch against that CDB,
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's only the open PDBs that you're going to patch.
Right.
It's only when you open those PDBs that you'll have to run the data patch. So,
right. I guess my question is, I'll have a CDB with 5 PDBs in it. They'll all be patched to the same level. I create a new PDB as a clone from a lower level or an older level. I run data patch, and data patch looks at everything and says, I don't need to patch it, I don't need to patch it, I don't need to patch it. Then it patches what it needs. Can I direct it to just go to the one that needs patched? And
yes.
okay.
Yeah. And you in that case, you connect directly to the PDB and run data patch in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, another question from Martin here. Am I in a position to elaborate on the enhancements in 19C regarding snapshot cloning on-prem? Yes. Okay, so the big change in 19C for snapshot cloning came with this database managed snapshots. Again, database managed snapshots are enabled by setting the database level parameter clone_db equal true. With that set, then the database manages snapshot cloning, and the limitation in all the previous versions in which we supported this, that started, I think it was 12.2 and 18. The limitation there was that we could do snapshot cloning in this way, but the source needed to remain read-only for the lifetime of any snapshot clones. In 19C, we lift that restriction. And so in 19C, your source, your snapshot clone source, can be read-writable as well. And that means that the snapshot clone source, as well as the clones themselves, can diverge. You can make changes to your snapshot clone, source, which are not reflected in the clones themselves. So that's a pretty big enhancement. For example, it makes the snapshot carousel potentially more efficient in terms of storage. The snapshot carousel itself is based on this database managed cloning technology. The snapshot carousel, we use the term snapshot, in a slightly different context. In terms of in the context of the snapshot carousel, the term snapshot, you should think of that in terms of a point-in-time copy, not necessarily a storage-efficient copy. And in 18, because of the restriction that I just mentioned, we needed to take full clones for each snapshot in the snapshot carousel. In 19, we can make them storage efficient point-in-time copies. And so we potentially end up with far less storage consumed in the snapshot carousel. And for on-prem, the snapshot carousel is only available on engineered systems, so that's Exadata and Odin. Of course, all this stuff is available in Oracle Cloud. Okay, any other questions? So Sven, Dave, and Martin, some excellent questions. Anybody else want to chime in? Dallas, Daryl, TP, Yazid. Okay, then I get to ask some questions. Dave said he's using 18C. Is anyone else using 18? Sven is. Yazid is. Martin is. Okay, this is good. Is anyone using 19 yet? We have 19.2 available now. 19.2 is available on Exadata and also on Oracle Cloud. Okay, Dallas is using 18C. No, that's right. 19 is not available on Odin yet. Correct. Sven asked a fair question. Any futures for 20C? I don't want to talk about futures. I think 19C is a fully functional product. How could we possibly need any more functionality? We've got plenty more coming in 19. 19.2 is available currently on Exadata. Next, we need to support Odin and various other platforms. So I think when 19.3 comes out, we'll have even wider platform support. And hopefully there'll be time to move on to that for everyone else. I'm glad to see so many of you on 18C though. 18C is very good, great functionality, good stability. Martin's doing a POC. Dallas is using 18. Yazid, I'm going to give you 7 out of 10 because you're using 18C, but you're not using multi-tenant. And I'm being generous today because normally I take off more than 3 out of 10 for not using multi-tenant. So good news for being modern. I'm glad you're on this call because there must be some interest in multi-tenant. You really should move to 19 to multi-tenant. You're probably aware that we've issued a deprecation notice for the non-CDB. That's been available. That deprecation has been in place for several years now, and we're making a very clear signal that at some point in the future we will no longer support the non-CDB architecture. And by definition, that future becomes closer and closer every day. So now's the time to make the jump to multi-tenant, and there's no looking back. Can I discuss when 19C may be available for on-prem non-engineered systems? I've got to be careful with, what's the old cliche? It's always difficult to make predictions, particularly about the future. But I expect that later in this calendar year, we will have a release of 19, which supports on-prem non-engineered systems. Okay, going back to my previous comment about the non-support for non-CDBs. That will come after the, that will happen after 19C. Non-CDB will be supported, as far as I know, for the lifetime of 19C. Okay. Now I want to ask about use cases. I'm sure lots of people are using development and testing, are doing development and testing based on CDBs. I think what you can do is you can raise a hand somehow if you don't want to shout out. How do you raise a hand here? I thought there was a way of raising a hand. So who's doing development and testing with multi-tenant? Obviously, I think Martin is. Dave is. Is anybody doing software as a service using multi-tenant? With with each tenant in a PDB of their own. Dave is working on SaaS. Okay. So Dallas, you seem to have some internal knowledge about Dave. Are you also a Nationwide? Four rows over. Okay, well, I suppose that's better than the other one, which is that you've got an inside source. You are the inside source. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. My next question was going to be about Oracle Cloud. So Sven is prompting me here. We're looking at using Oracle Cloud to offer some database service, Apex-based. Very good. Oh, but you found it too complex to use. Okay. Then, okay. I'm sorry that you found it too complex. But if you really want simplicity, the way to go is autonomous database. The old grumble about Oracle, too expensive, too difficult to use. That's just out of, that's no longer relevant in the era of autonomous database. The price is excellent, and it couldn't get any easier to use. So please give that a look. Apex is coming very soon on Autonomous, and there's some really good stuff there. Meanwhile, if you just want to play with Apex, there is a public Apex service. I think it's apex.oracle.com, that is well worth using. Just confirm that's the right address. Yes, apex.oracle.com. So have a look at that, and you can build some really good applications there. Okay, and Sven says the problem was like too many services to put together. So are you talking about, you know, configuring the firewall and all of these different components involved in operating in the cloud? Because again, a lot of this stuff is just totally simplified with Autonomous. It's all done for you. You end up with you know, you get to download some credentials, and then you're away. By the way, all of these services are based on PDBs, autonomous databases. You know, we're technically running a whole load of Exadatas in our cloud, 8-node rack. We've got all these Exadatas in the, you know, various data centers around the world. When you provision yourself a service, an autonomous service, technically what you're getting is a PDB, which we manage for you. Okay, next one from Sven. To run an Apex-based service, we would have needed some IaaS part to run words, to run ORDs, I guess you mean, the database itself, an additional storage service. Okay. Yeah, then I think the way to go is going to be Autonomous. So very shortly we're going to have support for Apex in Autonomous database. That's going to have everything you need. You're going to have everything you want there. Okay. Any other questions here? Dallas, are you letting Dave ask all the questions for you? I'll wink at you for that one. Kieran has joined us. Hello, Kieran. Is there anything you'd like to discuss, Kieran? You can either speak it, and you'd have to unmute yourself, look in the bottom left, or you can text it into the to the chat window here. There's a first time for everything, Kieran. Welcome to multi-tenant office hours. Yeah, I mean, the format I use for this is just rather than, you know, dump a whole load of formal presentations on, I try to make it open at any topic that anyone wants to attend. So if you just want to sit by and listen this time around, fine. Have a look on our OTN page. It is oracle.com/go-to/multitenant. Pretty easy to remember. There's a lot of material there, links to YouTube and all sorts of things. There are links to download this stuff and play with it under the terms of our OTN license, including the multi-tenancy features, by the way. So go ahead and play with it. And if you have any questions that you have following that, then we do this every month. So if you'd like to join us in a month or so, again, you're very welcome, and ask any questions that you might have following that investigation. Okay, I've got some more questions for you since they're not coming to me. My questions to folks here. How familiar are you with various different channels through which we publish our information? I'll just list a few here. There's OTN, on which we've got a lot of collateral. There are a lot of videos that I put on YouTube. I blog, but not terribly frequently. I tweet even less frequently. But I'm interested to know what channels folks are interested in consuming. So Sven has said yes to something, but I gave you 4 options. I'm sorry. Could you, first of all, Sven, how did you put that check mark there? What did you do? Oh, there are, okay. Oh, I see. Maybe you get the icons that I don't get because I'm the host. I see. Okay. So there are icons that you use to do things like raise a hand or put a check mark, is that right? Ah, okay, everyone. So here we go. We got the inside. Oh, here it is. Yes, no, I see it down at the bottom. Yeah, so if you open up the participants, so here it is now. So look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see manage participants. And then you see these icons here, and I see them down the bottom of my screen. Yes. And you can click that. You can click no. Oh, look, and then it goes away. All right then. Thank you. So now I'm learning how to use my own tool. I'm glad I came to my own office hours because here I learn. Okay, so can I try those again? All right, so Dallas will give me the hand clap. So could we take a little round of votes about how many people access our stuff on OTN? Please hit yes. Okay, well, hands up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. 5. Okay, so lots of you. This is good news. All right, now, how many people know about the YouTube stuff? Lots of people on mute. Dave didn't know about YouTube. Okay. Kieran didn't know about YouTube. Ah. Okay, so from OTN, I think we've got links to some of our stuff, but I'm going to post a link now to our YouTube page because we've got lots of good stuff in there. Collateral. Yeah, Sven says he doesn't like YouTube for technical content. I think there's very much a matter of taste there. Oh dear, I'm going to make this quiet.
Hello, this is Penny Apple.
Playlists. All right. Yeah. So if I do this and share this, to everyone. Okay, there's a load of playlists here, several of which are mine. So apologies to Sven if you don't like the technical content. I tried to make it sort of approachable stuff, not very technical, but there are some technical things in there. All right then, so there was that stuff. What about blogging? What about blogs? Who's interested in blogs? Does anyone read my blog? Sven likes blogs, so I dare say you like blogs for technical stuff. Dallas also. So we've got a couple of people who are interested in blogs, Martin too. All right, so lots of folks like blogs. Okay, maybe I should do this a bit more seriously. And what about tweeting, Twitter? Does anyone use that? Yeah, the Optimizer group's got a great blog. Yeah, Maria SQL's very good, and yeah, they do some very good stuff. Yeah. Yes, she does rock. Okay. And I suppose the next question, yeah, Jeff is great too. Jeff's got a very well viewed blog. Jeff Smith, that is, that Jeff Smith. He goes by under Twitter. Excellent stuff. There's a very good one also from Mike Dietrich for upgrades. Yeah. Okay. What about white papers? Who's interested in white papers? Okay. Yeah, so there's a school of thought that says white papers are very old school. Modern stuff is blogging and videos, but a lot of people are still interested in white papers. It's good to hear. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for allowing me to ask my questions too. But there have been some very good questions during this hour. For folks like Kieran, who appear to be here on one of the first office hours you've joined, I hope that it was useful to you. Thank you everyone for your participation, and it really is, it's a two-way street. So thank you for yours. If you didn't come here, it wouldn't be worth my doing it. But I've enjoyed this because this has been a lively and interesting conversation. Dave, I've got some follow-up to do with you because of your good questions, and I will do that shortly. Yeah, good point. Dallas says that, Kieran, you might find the recorded versions useful. And we do record these, and they're posted on the office hours site. It takes a day or two because I need to do some editing before it gets posted up there. I usually don't get through to that until the weekend, but in due course that it's available there. Okay, thank you everybody. So with that, we're at the top of the hour, and we will wrap this up now. Speak to you all in a month, maybe. Bye bye.